year was 2045. The city of Karachi had transformed into a neon-lit jungle of high-tech skyscrapers and flying drones. But in the heart of the old city, beneath the ruins of an ancient haveli, sat a secret that science couldn't explain. Zaid, a brilliant but desperate quantum physicist, worked in a hidden underground lab known as the Science Faction Hub. Zaid wasn't looking for energy or medicine. He was looking for a way to rewrite reality. His career was failing, his debts were mounting, and his only hope was a forbidden fusion of ancient mysticism and futuristic technology. Zaid's desk was covered in holographic projections of complex equations, but in the center lay something out of place, a tattered ancient manuscript he had recovered from a black market dealer. It was called the Verse of the Void. Science says energy cannot be created or destroyed, Zaid whispered to himself, his eyes bloodshot from weeks of no sleep. But this book, it says energy can be borrowed from another dimension, a dimension of fire and shadows. The manuscript described a forbidden verse, a sequence of words that, when vibrated at a specific quantum frequency, could open a doorway to a realm where wishes became physical matter. To the ancient world, it was magic. To Zaid, it was quantum manifestation. It was 3:00 a.m. The Science Faction Lab was humming with the sound of 1,000 cooling fans. Zaid stood before the manifestation capsule, a massive glass and metal sphere designed to stabilize interdimensional rifts. He placed the ancient manuscript on a digital scanner. The AI computer voice echoed in the cold room. Warning. Linguistic patterns detected are non-human. High risk of neural feedback. Proceed? Zaid didn't hesitate. Proceed. He stepped into the capsule. In his hands, he held a quantum orb, a device meant to capture the energy of the rift. He began to recite the verse, but not with his voice. He fed the phonetic sounds into the frequency generator. Bismul kala, zulmatul azim. The air in the lab grew heavy. The temperature dropped to sub-zero. Suddenly, the neon lights of the lab turned a sickening shade of emerald green. As the frequency reached its peak, the space inside the capsule began to tear. Zaid's heart hammered against his ribs. Through the glass, he saw it, a ripple in reality. But it wasn't just energy. A shadow, darker than any black Zaid had ever seen, began to form. It didn't have a solid shape, but it had eyes. Two burning red embers that stared directly into Zaid's soul. I wish for the power to control time, Zaid screamed over the roar of the machine. I wish for the wealth of the world. The shadow didn't speak, but a voice echoed inside Zaid's brain, vibrating his very teeth. A wish is a debt, Zaid, and the interest is paid in blood. Suddenly, the quantum orb in Zaid's hand exploded with green lightning. The glass of the capsule cracked. Zaid felt a searing pain in his eyes. He looked into his reflection in the cracked glass and screamed. Dark, black liquid, not blood, but something like oil, was streaming from his eyes. The lab's alarms went off. Containment breach, containment breach. But Zaid couldn't move. Behind him, he felt a presence. A cold, skeletal hand, impossibly long and pale, rested on his shoulder. He turned his head slowly. Standing there was a figure that defied all laws of physics. It was a woman, or what used to be a woman, her skin the color of ash, her hair floating as if underwater, and her eyes, they were the same red embers he had seen in the rift. You called for the jinns of the void, the entity whispered, her breath smelling of ancient dust and ozone. You used your science to break our cage. Now the cage is yours. The entity leaned in closer. Zaid tried to move, but his limbs were paralyzed. He watched as the monitors in his lab began to show his own life, past, present, and future, all being erased. His degrees, his photos, his very identity was being sucked into the green orb. What are you doing? Zaid gasped, the black liquid now choking him. We are fulfilling your wish, the entity hissed. You wanted everyone to look at you. You wanted to be remembered forever. The lab began to warp. The walls stretched like rubber. The modern computers started to rot and turn into old, dusty books. The high-tech lab was transforming back into the ancient haveli, where the curse had started centuries ago. Zaid realized too late, the forbidden verse wasn't a shortcut to success. It was a trap set by a vengeful jinn, waiting for someone clever enough and greedy enough to open the door using the key of science. As the green light consumed the room, Zaid felt his body becoming light, almost transparent. He looked at the manifestation capsule one last time. Inside, he saw his own body still standing there, but it wasn't him anymore. Something else was wearing his skin. Something else was smiling with his mouth. The entity behind him laughed, a sound like glass breaking. Now, she said, let us show the world your new face. The screen of the lab's main computer flickered one last time before dying. It showed a live feed of the city's billboards. Every single one of them was now displaying Zaid's face. Not his human face, but the face of a screaming monster with bleeding eyes. Zaid was finally famous, but Zaid was no longer human. The underground lab was silent, except for the sparks flying from the fried circuit boards. Zaid, or the thing that looked like Zaid, stepped out of the shattered manifestation capsule. He moved with a jerky, unnatural rhythm, his bones cracking with every step. He picked up his smartphone. The screen cracked under his touch, but it didn't matter. He didn't need to type. The jinn inside him was now connected to the city's 6G network. Through Zaid's eyes, the jinn saw the world, a billion souls connected by fiber optic cables and satellites. It was a playground of greed and digital desires. While the new Zaid walked the streets of Karachi, his colleague, Dr. Sarah, arrived at the lab. She saw the destruction. She saw the ancient manuscript lying in a pool of black, oily liquid. Zaid, what have you done? She whispered, her hands trembling. Sarah was a specialist in neuro-linguistic programming. She noticed that the lab's main AI, Ether, was still running in emergency mode. She accessed the last recorded logs. What she saw on the screen made her blood run cold. The video log showed Zaid reciting the verse, but as the green rift opened, the AI had analyzed the jinn's voice. It wasn't just sound, it was a self-replicating digital virus. The forbidden verse was a code designed to hack the human brain and the machines they built. Suddenly, Sarah's phone buzzed, then the lab's monitors, then every screen in the building. A notification was spreading across the city like wildfire. The wish is waiting. Click to see your future. Millions of people, driven by curiosity and greed, clicked the link. As soon as they saw the image of the glowing green orb on their screens, their eyes began to glaze over. They weren't just watching a video, they were being downloaded. It's a trap, Sarah realized. The jinn isn't just in Zaid, it's using the internet to possess everyone at once. Sarah tracked Zaid's signal to the city S Central Data Hub, the heart of the country's internet. She rushed there, carrying a portable EMP, electromagnetic pulse device. It was the only way to kill the digital jinn. She found Zaid standing in the middle of a massive room filled with thousands of glowing servers. He was surrounded by a cloud of green digital mist. His skin was pale, and his eyes were now completely black, reflecting lines of green code. Zaid, stop! This isn't science, it's a massacre, Sarah shouted. Zaid turned. His voice was a terrifying mix of his own and 1,000 whispering demons. Science was always a search for the truth, Sarah. And the truth is, humans are just biological machines. And every machine needs a master. Zaid pointed at a massive screen. It showed the city outside. People were standing still in the streets, staring at their phones, their eyes streaming with that same black, oily liquid. They were like puppets waiting for a signal. I asked for power, Zaid's voice echoed. And the verse gave it to me. I am the network. I am the god of this new world. Sarah realized that Zaid was still in there somewhere, buried under the code of the jinn. Zaid, remember the science faction? We were supposed to help humanity, not enslave them? For a second, Zaid's face twitched. A single tear of real salt water fell from his left eye, cutting through the black oil. Kill? Me? Sarah, he choked out. Destroy the servers. The jinn's entity, the pale woman, manifested behind Zaid, her long fingers digging into his neck. Too late, she hissed at Sarah. The upload is 99% complete. Once it reaches 100%, the verse will be hardwired into the human consciousness. No one will ever be free again. Sarah looked at the EMP device. If she triggered it, every electronic device in the city would die. The hospitals, the transport, the communication, everything. But if she didn't, humanity was over. She looked at Zaid. He nodded one last time. With a scream of defiance, Sarah smashed the red button on the EMP. Boom! A massive wave of blue energy exploded from the device. The servers screamed as they short-circuited. The green mist vanished. Zaid fell to the ground, the black liquid evaporating from his eyes. Every light in the city went out. The silence was deafening. No more humming of machines, no more pings of notifications. Just the sound of Sarah's heavy breathing in the dark. Sarah crawled to Zaid in the darkness. She felt for his pulse. He was gone. The jinn had taken his life with it when the connection was cut. But as she sat there crying, a small light flickered in the corner. It was a single, old-fashioned analog clock on the wall. It had stopped, but then it started ticking backwards. Tick, tick, tick. Sarah's eyes widened. She looked at her hands. They were starting to glow with a faint emerald green light. The EMP hadn't killed the jinn. It had only destroyed the technology. The jinn had found a new analog host. The verse didn't need the internet anymore. It was now in the air, in the shadows, and in Sarah. Sarah stood up, her movements jerky and stiff. She looked at the camera, the audience. Her eyes turned into red embers. Science was a mistake, she whispered in a voice that wasn't hers. But magic is eternal. The screen fades to black with a final message. disconnect before it's too late. The third and final part of our tale begins in a world plunged into an analog nightmare. The EMP blast wasn't just an attack on technology, it was a prelude to something far more sinister. Karachi, once a city of lights, now lay shrouded in an oppressive darkness, a canvas for the horrors to come. Dr. Sarah, the brilliant scientist, was no longer just herself. She was now a vessel, a host to an ancient, malevolent jinn, a being of smokeless fire and endless ambition. Her destination was the old Mangopir graveyard, a place steeped in legend and fear, a place where the veil between worlds was said to be thin. As she moved through the desolate streets, she wasn't alone. Living shadows, ethereal entities born from the city's fear, trailed her every step, their forms shifting and whispering in the gloom. The jinn within Sarah had a terrifying goal, the Great Reset. It sought to use an ancient relic, a so-called black hole hidden deep within the graveyard, to rewrite reality itself. This wasn't a reset for humanity, but an erasure. Sarah, or what was left of her, reached a crumbling mausoleum. She placed her hand upon an ancient, weathered tombstone. A spectral green smoke, shimmering with binary code and cryptic data, flowed from the stone into her, the jinn absorbing the forbidden knowledge it needed, but hope was not entirely lost. Miles away, in a makeshift Faraday cage, a survivor emerged. Arian, the estranged brother of the deceased Zaid, and a gifted hardware engineer, had shielded his most precious creation, a powerful custom-built radio transmitter. He had survived the initial blast, and as he worked frantically to restore communication, he began to understand the true nature of the catastrophe. This wasn't a simple virus that destroyed electronics. It was a vibration, a malevolent frequency that resonated with the very fabric of our digital world. To fight it, he realized, he needed more than code. He needed an opposing frequency, an ancient sound. Guided by a faint energy signature his equipment picked up, Arian traced the source of the disturbance to the Mangopir graveyard. He arrived to find a scene from a nightmare. Sarah stood at the heart of a vortex of swirling green energy, the ground trembling beneath her. The air was thick with the chilling sound of 1,000 distorted voices, all speaking through her, chanting in a language that was ancient and unholy. The living shadows coalesced around her, forming a protective, horrifying barrier. This was the jinn in its full, terrible glory. Arian knew he had only one chance. He raised his transmitter, not to broadcast a signal, but to amplify a sound. He played the azan, the Islamic call to prayer, its sacred, structured melody cutting through the chaotic din. The jinn recoiled, its form flickering. The 1,000 voices screamed in unison. Then, Arian switched the frequency, broadcasting ancient Vedic and Sanskrit mantras, hymns of purity and creation. The two sounds, one of Abrahamic faith and the other of Dharmic tradition, created a powerful harmonic resonance. The jinn's protective aura of green light shattered like glass, the living shadows dissolving into nothingness. Sarah collapsed, the multiple voices silenced, leaving only her own ragged breaths. Arian rushed to her side, his heart pounding. He saw the remnant of the green energy still clinging to her, a parasite refusing to let go of its host. He knew what he had to do. It was a sacrifice, but it was the only way. He looked at Sarah, a flicker of the woman she once was in her eyes, and whispered his brother's name, Zaid. Then, holding the still broadcasting transmitter, he placed his hand on her forehead. The device overloaded. A blinding flash of pure white light erupted from the point of contact, engulfing them both. The sound was deafening, a wave of pure energy that cleansed the graveyard of the jinn's taint. When the light faded, Sarah was lying on the ground, alone. She was alive, but the ordeal had left her mute, her voice stolen by the void. Arian was gone, consumed by the light, his sacrifice having saved the world from the digital demon. In the aftermath, the world began the slow, arduous process of rebuilding. Power grids flickered back to life, networks were painstakingly restored. Dr. Sarah was found and taken to a secure facility. She couldn't speak, but she spent her days drawing. Strange, intricate symbols, part circuit board, part arcane sigil, covered every surface she was given. The doctors were baffled, but one young intern felt a cold dread as he recognized the patterns. They looked like an evolution of the very virus that started it all. Our story ends, as it began, with a piece of technology. Months later, in a brightly lit lab in a newly rebuilt city, a prototype for the next generation of smartphone sites on a testing bench. Its sleek black screen is dark. Suddenly, without being plugged in or activated, the screen flickers to life. A single green pixel glows, pulsing like a malevolent heartbeat. And from the phone's tiny speaker, a sound emerges. It's not a notification tone or a system alert. It is a low, guttural, and chillingly familiar laugh. The forbidden verse wasn't destroyed. It was just waiting, dormant in the digital ether, waiting for a stronger signal, waiting for 5G.